A friend of ours joins us on the program first up, who is very much a supporter, represents and looks after the wonderful native animal that we have, the dingo. After talking to our friend, who we'll meet in just a moment, I didn't realise so much about the dingoes, how they actually are and how they operate and what they mean to our diversity of our land as well. So let's have a chat to our friend. His name is Nick Papalia. Good morning, Nick.
Hi, John. How are you?
Very
nice
well.
To speak again. Yep.
You too, Nick, and nice to have your company. You're passionate about dingoes. First of all, tell us why you love dingoes so much.
Years ago, I went across to Melbourne and I went out to Castlemaine and I saw a sign-up, visit Bruce Jacobs' Dingo Sanctuary, and I went out there, and I'm from a farming background years ago when I was younger, and I had a lot to do with dogs, but dingoes are quite different. They're a different species to a dog, which is Canis familiaris, and dingo's title is Canis dingo. Anyway, I got to this location, and he said, lay down the ground. So I lay down the ground. It was like an epiphany. It was amazing. Oh, he had 100 alpine dingoes. There's 4 types of dingoes in the country. There's alpines and Fraser Island, deserts and tropicals, and the alpine dingo is the rarest. And these dingoes were like a bee swarm. They hoovered over me. They were so gentle and delicate and very inquisitive. And it was an epiphany. I got up and I was moved to try to save them in every possible manner. And I've been doing that ever since. And that was in 1995.
Nick, are dingoes and dogs related in any way? How far back down the track?
Dingo isn't a dog and it's not a wolf. It's sort of in between. It's in 2015, they gave it a unique title, acknowledged by the state, the government, and scientific field. They're different to dogs, but they're still a canine in the aspect that they have one cycle a year, where a dog has 2 cycles a year. And the dingo's brain is 30% larger. The skull morphology is 30% larger than the dog. They only have one partner for life. Dogs don't. And they'll only, if they're in a pack and there's 6 or 8 dingoes living in a pack, when they have puppies, the only 2 that breed will be the alphas, and the others will be immediate surrogate parents to those puppies. And they don't bark generally if they've been in association with dogs, or they can copy and simulate a dog bark if they're in association with dogs. But they're very different, yes.
Can you get a crossbreed between a dog and a dingo?
Sure, they'll do that, and that's what's happening with the 1080 baiting. We've actually got a rally on this weekend on Saturday at 10 a.m. outside Parliament House. It's purely symbolic and it's a peaceful gathering of people, and it's to call for a ban on 1080, which is, it's the most dreadful super toxin, and Australia and New Zealand still use it, and all civilised countries on earth banned it decades ago. When they use that in a landscape, it desecrates the hierarchy of the dingo's family, and the structure with the alpha dingo and the ruling and the education of juveniles is all destabilised. And that's when they'll cross and mate with dogs. But don't do that if you protect the dingo species, which is actually, the dingo is the father's best friend. It's everyone's best friend. We're just
losing your line a little bit there, Nick, but I just want to be clear about this. So if the alpha of the dingo pack dies as a result of this eating poison, so dies earlier than anyone in the pack was expecting, then there's no natural progression ready, so the pack essentially falls apart.
Yes, that's right. The alpha is the actual teacher to the dingo puppies and juveniles. Like, without the alpha, they run amok in competition and anarchy, and that's when they'll mate with dogs. So 1080 actually creates wild dog problem. And when the dingo is not damaged and they're protected, they're a role model because they're the guardian, protector and modulator of the Australian ecosystem, and they'll make sure there's no wild dogs, because anyone that enters into their territory will be taken out pretty quick.
I see. So what's the 1080 there for? What's its purpose? It's a poison, but what is it? What are the people who leave it there, what are they hoping it'll kill?
Well, it kills everything. I was just reading a study done by Murdoch, a research paper over 18 years, and they say it kills foxes and it kills dingoes. It destabilises everything, and the research paper's pretty amazing, actually. It was done by scientists, S.J. Dundas and P.J. Adams and Fleming, and this super toxin, the graph, it hardly kills foxes. It has destabilised all the dingoes in the southwest, so they're extinct down there. But across Australia, there are pockets of pure dingoes. There's myth out there that says there's none in Australia, and that's actually rubbish. There is pockets of pure dingoes still. We need to protect them. But this super toxin in the southwest, the most animals that have died from 1080 baits are quokkas, possums, bandicoots, kangaroos, bush wallabies, tuditches, mardos, bobtails, magpies, ravens, rats, and feral pigs. The least on the list are the foxes, which is the intent.
So the fox is the intent of the 1080, and even if it does kill some of them, it's the ramifications of it are actually worse than the success of the few foxes it's killing. Nick, in your studies, have you actually discovered any more effective ways of ridding our fox population? Because that seems to be the main intent. And usually people say, well, if we're not going to have the 1080, what can we use?
Yeah, there's actually, look, there's a whole lot of alternatives if people will use them, and they take the example from overseas and other countries. In Australia, they're using flagery, which are flags on hot wire electric fences to stop wild dogs, dingoes and foxes. They're used very successfully in the USA, Europe and Africa, and the fox lights are Australian-made and designed. They are also solar. They work very well. We've also got guardian animals like merino dogs, donkeys, alpacas. Camels are actually very good. And in Africa, in Namibia, they use them very successfully to guard stock against lion attack. So there's a lot of things.
Nick, am I hearing you right? They use camels to guard cattle from attack.
They use camels. Camels in Namibia are very good guardian animals.
How?
And in packs, they work as guardians, and they'll use them in Namibia to stop lions attacking because they seem to, well, it says it works well, and I've been researching that. We use alpacas in Australia to stop wild dogs and dingoes and foxes in stock. Donkeys are available. Merino dogs are also available that work well, and they're being used in West Australia and Queensland on farms.
I don't expect you to explain it, Nick, but I can't easily see how they would stop the attacks from the wild animals, particularly the foxes is what we're talking about. But rest assured, you say that this is how it can be done without putting poison down.
I think the more successful thing to do, which is very successful, would be the flagery, which are the flags on hot wire electric fence, and also those fox lights. In August in 2018, there was, on August the 25th, there was the first summit in Australia on 1080. And people from around Australia and New Zealand got together on a scientific level and created an awareness-raising 2.5-hour broadcast across Australia, New Zealand and the world around 1080, and that was where this information came up.
Oh, I see. Now, of course, 1080, for those who aren't sure, is a poison. It's a very effective poison. Nick, do you think that it's the popular choice more because it's cheap rather than effective?
There's a lot of myth and ignorance promoted around 1080. It's sodium monofluoroacetate acetate. There's nothing natural about 1080. Some people say, oh, it's natural. It's derived from a plant extract, and that plant extract's taken to a laboratory. It's a synthetic compound, nothing natural about it at all. The sense of taste and smell is removed, and the super toxicity of the toxicity levels risen thousands and thousands of times. So when any animal's baited by 1080 and there's no antidote, they'll die, and they can take 3 or 4 days to die in agony. A dingo will take 3 or 4 days sometimes to die, and everything that dies from 1080 is left littered across our landscape, and everything that's opportunistic in feeding upon that super toxin that the World Health Organization classes as a 1A deadliest poison, weapon of mass destruction, will die too. And it's a contradiction in terms and the greatest travesty ever seen in this country against conservation.